back to another episode of Sembrando Ideales. I'm Guillermo, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Dr. Alfredo, Jareni, and Celeste. And before we start, I just want to give a shout out to the Foundation of Economic Democracy and this cool-ass merch that we got.
Nice.
Yep, and then we have some buttons, dignity stickers.
Yeah, we got some swag for all our members. So if y'all like our show, we're using sort of this medium to like get the word out about a lot of like economic democracy stuff, politics. But we're actually a membership organization, and we don't want to chase grants. We want to sort of like do what our members want to do and do good in the world the way that our members want to do it. But like part of that is being accountable and having money. And so if you sign up to be a member, you get cool merchandise, but also you help us carry out our projects. Sorry for the quick plug. I kind of took over for the advertising right there.
It's cool. Shout out to everyone that's been joining and becoming a member. We want to show the appreciation, and also we appreciate the swag that we're getting.
Dude, I have we have a member in Hong Kong.
For real?
Yeah. So
cool.
He's a grad student. He was a grad student at UC Irvine when I was there, and he's teaching out there. And so he follows me on Facebook, and he likes all the posts. And then we posted the link, the Patreon, when we did our membership campaign, and he signed up. And so I went to see how much it costs to ship out there, and it's actually it's decent. His membership fee at some point is going to cover it. So I figured let's do it. And so he's super excited that he's going to get his T-shirt out there. So if you have one of our T-shirts, one of the things that would be cool is if you can actually take pictures in just like cool places. That's actually an ongoing thing. Whether you're at a protest, you go traveling somewhere. I think we have a picture of somebody wearing our T-shirt in Machu Picchu, and we have a picture of someone wearing a T-shirt in Seattle. And so we're I think it's cool that our members are just traveling the world and doing good work out there. And so take a picture, take a selfie, Instagram it, and tag us so we can see some of our merch all over the world. I think that'd be dope.
Sounds good. So how are you guys doing today? How's the political climate treating y'all?
I'm gonna let y'all talk. I talk too much anyway.
Go ahead, Yereni.
It's a lot to take in at times, because it's like you just feel defeated, or at least I do sometimes. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, are we ever gonna get out of this shithole?
I feel you. And it's barely September. Like, I just want the year to end already, kind of.
2020. Bye.
It's been like nonstop, like one thing after another. It's like when you're barely getting up, it's like again.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming at times. And it's like, okay, what's next? What? Oh my goodness.
I wish that I could say that it gets better. Like there's a huge age difference between y'all and me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sort of laughing because I've been feeling like that ever since I was your age.
Oh wow,
man.
So much hope.
I know, so much hope.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, why do I even bother? Why don't I go live somewhere else in a different country where people actually have freedom? Like even at least in Mexico, I can walk around with a fucking beer in my hand and nobody's gonna bother me. I can eat tortas all fucking day every day, like good ones. But then I recognize this is the sort of the Zapatistas. I don't know if y'all know this, but the Zapatistas when they were sort of they had started their uprising. In the international world was all focused on them, and there's so many people that started going there, and they started saying, "Hey, how can we help you?" And they were like, "You know what? You can't help us here. We need you to help us over there." Because the power structure in this world is based out of DC. We need you to stay in your communities. We need you to be out there and to change the politics of over there, which will have a positive impact on the politics over here. And so that kind of gives me purpose. And I'll be honest with you, one of the things that gives me purpose is I try to live. I try to live in the moment. I was telling y'all earlier that I'm toying with the idea of being doing a stand-up comedy bit. I don't know if I'll be any good at it, I don't, and it's not because I want to make money off of it. It's just because I feel like I have it in me, and it's a challenge that I want to take on. And I want to look back and be like, yeah, I remember that one time I tried to do that thing, and like, whether it's good, whether it goes good or bad, like if it goes terrible, I'll have a funny story. Like, dude, I remember I did that one time. That was fucking awful. And so that that gives me focus, in the sense that, like, you do the best you can, you try to improve a little bit every day, you try to help the world a little bit every day, and at the same time, find the like daily pleasures of like being a human being and trying to realize your full humanity.
Thank you for that advice, because I think that's something that's really important to remember, because it's easy to, like, the political, everything that happens, it's easy for it to knock us down. Like for me, I was feeling down this week. I was just feeling like without energy to continue, like you said, like, what's the point? But then we get reminded, like, to constantly, it's also that we have to keep fighting, keep pushing, because
keep fighting, and also like learn to just laugh at life, like that's honestly, like, it's insane that I have to deal with like all the like stupid Trump shit that's going on in the world, and yet like it's not funny, right? Fascism isn't funny, but at the same time, if you let it consume you, you just become a nihilist, and like that's not good either. Like, you don't believe you can change anything. So
you call it what it is, fascism. That's good, because
it's
they're really fascists.
And like, I have thoughts on, if we want to do a whole episode on like American fascism, we can. But I don't think it started in 2016. Like the way that, so I mean, actually, we're going to talk about this today in terms of policing, right? Like, I mean, maybe I can save it for then. But before we get into that, how about we jump into this? What, I don't even know her name. This.
Her name is Jessica Krug, I think, Krug. Is that how you say it?
But is it really Jessica?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if our listeners know, but essentially, there's this basically Rachel Dolezal 2.0, and there's this woman who basically masqueraded. I actually like that word. I was reading an article about, like, what do we call it when someone tries to pass? And that's not really passing; it's masquerading, right? Passing is when you actually kind of are, and then like you just try to assimilate. Like, she's not. So basically, she masqueraded as a Afro-Latina, specifically as a Boricua, Puerto Rican scholar, and like she gaslit and she bullied hella people like around her, always trying to prove that she was smarter than everyone, and more Latino and more Afro-Latino than anyone. And that's just, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy that it happened once, and then there's still some people out there. I mean, these are the only two that we know about, right?
That's true. How many more are there? And then I think that it's a trend also, like in the UK, for girls to pass as black women.
Yeah, like I think the term is called blackfishing, where it's like they won't say that they're like ethnic or black or whatever, but like they profit off them looking black or Latina or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple of things that I think are interesting here. So one, like, there's, I think, was it Ariana Grande is the one that gets accused of doing that sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like, like you see episodes, like you see her when she was younger, and she's like, she's white, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, Taylor Swift's white, right? But Taylor Swift doesn't like
tan,
like try to appear like darker skinned.
And it's further than just tanning, because it's not just a tan. It's clearly makeup that's darker.
Yeah.
That could, and with her name, it could be like, I've heard people think that she's Latina.
Yeah. And it's also like, she can take it off, right? Like, that's the whole fucked up part about it, is that, like, you're performing, like darkness for profit, but then you can take it off and not be subject to the exploitation and oppression of those folks. So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is the like people who actually like perform it full time. That's a whole new fucking like
Rachel Dolezal.
Yeah. So in a world in which, the like white supremacy is privileged and whiteness is privileged, like there's people out there who are white, who like go inject themselves into like people of color spaces who like, and within those spaces use that, like try to like rise up in those spaces, like motherfucker, you're colonizing our spaces too. Like, you didn't just colonize the whole ass world, you're also trying to colonize us within like our own sort of spaces, and then performing to the outside world that you're one of us and you're one of the successful ones, because apparently she's really successful. Like, you know, she's,
Yeah, I think like she wrote like several books. She's like the head of the ethnic studies or the Black ethnic studies department.
well, she won't be very long, I'll tell you that.
Mm-mm.
I don't know, man.
How did it become known?
What?
Like it was a lie. How did it become known that it was a lie after carrying that?
I think so. So there was a again. I'm not an expert. I've seen a couple of things on it because it just happened. Like I think yesterday or the day before. But apparently, like people kind of knew, but they would question her, and she would berate them, like, "Why? How dare you question my, African or Latino-ness?" And then, so one lady who had been I think it was a lady, woman who had been the subject of her abuse, like she's verbally abusive to people, like started asking other prominent scholars, like, "Hey, what has been your experience with this lady?" And they all started basically sharing. So it was one of those things where like everyone kind of knew, but everyone thought that they were the only ones that thought that, because they thought like, oh, how, like maybe it's and it's this sort of oppression thing. Like, is it fucked up of me for me to question an Afro Latina? So like they would be like they would subsume their feelings, because they're like, oh no, like I can't, I should trust, Afro Latinas, like that. So like there's that double-edged sword, right? But then she had kind of had it, and eventually they just started talking, and then I don't know like how it actually came out.
So there's this article that says that the only reason she came out was because two other senior Black Latina scholars investigated her and did like research on her, and then like talked to other people, like he was saying, and they all like connected the dots, and they were gonna come out and like confront her about it and like publicly. So what she did, she got ahead of the story and she confessed her lie on her own.
Yeah, to try to do damage control and PR, right? But like, but even then, like,
how long was the lie gonna last?
You know what's fucked up about this? Yeah, so I mean, how long was the lie gonna last? What's fucked up about this is she's gonna get a book deal out of this shit the same way that Rachel Dolezal got a book deal out of it. She's gonna write a book about ethnography, like what it's like to be an Afro Latina in academia, as an outside perspective. Like it's all bullshit, man.
And then have you heard her accent? Sorry, Guillermo. Have you heard her like accent?
No, I haven't
heard her.
It's so bad. Hopefully, I'll send you the video, and hopefully we can like insert it into like.
Please.
It's so bad because it's like, what is this? Like, what kind of like accent is this?
And it's all fucked up for like the actual Afro Latinas that have been struggling to have a presence, like not just a presence, but like it's a struggle that they've been continuously having to have a voice in the Latino community.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's barging in and having people question her identity just makes it even worse. Like, it's horrible.
Well, not just within the community, but also in like academia, right? Like, Latino scholars are like, like there's not a lot of us. And so, especially like, women in the field, in fields. And so it's it's a slap in the face to them. It's a slap in the face to every single woman of color that she was in school with and that she was a colleague of, because she made them all feel like they were stupid. She purposely wanted to be the like the smartest person in the room, and she treated everyone else like they were crap. So like, but they couldn't say anything because she was Afro Latina, right? And then the irony of this is, for me, yesterday I was talking about the concept of whiteness with my students, and then how Jewish folks became the last white people in the United States, right? And then like James Baldwin has a really famous piece called "On Being White and Other Lies," where he talks about how they pay the highest price, and this woman ends up being Jewish. And then last episode we talked about like the sort of the complicated politics behind sort of ethnic studies, and how there's Zionists who just yesterday they defeated the Senate bill that would have implemented ethnic studies in the high schools, the same way that we're implementing ethnic studies in universities, at least in the CSU. There was a similar effort to try to do the same thing in K through 12, and the Jewish Zionist lobby. I want to separate between Jewishness and also Zionism, because they're they're related but kind of not the same. Like, one, not all Jewish folks are Zionists. Zionists are particular people who have a vision of the state in Israel. And I know we're going to get shit for this because this is controversial. People are going to say anti-Semitic. It's not at all. Like, I believe that Jewish folks have the right to have their own state. At the same time, I believe that Palestinians have the right to have their own territories and states. And so, like, the way we do land acknowledgements in the United States, I feel like the same thing should happen there, because that's sort of Palestinian land. And the fact that Palestinians don't have rights in their own historic land is really terrible. But anyway, so like you bring any of this up, like, you get attacked, right? I'm sure y'all have people investigate me at Cal State Long Beach, and there'll be pressure and all that. So what happened was, sorry, this is Dr. Carlos going off on tangent like he always does. And then that was me just talking about myself in third person, which is weird. And so the ethnic studies bill got defeated by these folks, and then here's a Jewish woman, like, inserting herself into this discussion, into this context, like pretending to be Afro-Latina, while at the same time telling us that our particular unique history in the United States, in the Southwest, in the South, is not as valid, or is, it's different, right? Like, ethnic studies is about the particular histories of Native people, African American people, Asian American people, and Chicano folks and Latino folks. And not to say that like Jewish studies isn't important, that people should study that, because that's a whole particular history. There's other group of people who have been marginalized, but it not in the same like context as those folks, and it's just unfortunate. Anyhow, she did some ridiculous shit. How about we talk about that? Did y'all see some of what she did? So I saw a Twitter feed where this lady was like, one time she came to class dressed in a salsa dress, like ready to go out salsa dancing. And, and I had to do a double take, because I was like, what the fuck? But then at the same time, I was like, am I playing the politics of respectability? Is that fucked up of me to like think that she shouldn't be dressed in a salsa dress for like graduate class? But yeah, so she was like outlandishly like performative. And she was trying to perform her Latina-ness and her like Afro-Latina-ness like more than anyone would. Like, I wouldn't put it past her if she was out here in the Southwest, if she'd fucking go to class and wearing a fucking sombrero. Celeste, as someone who just found out about this, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I just found out.
And I know it's a lot, so right before the thing, we were like, Rachel Dolezal, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're like, who's that? And it's cool because y'all are young, right? But yeah, how do you feel about, folks like performing their ethnicity, like other people's ethnicity?
Like, shocked? Like, why would somebody do that? And just like, for so long, how do you keep up that lie? Like, I don't understand why. That's crazy.
Yeah, like fucking Rachel Dolezal. And here's the thing that trips me out is it's not like they're performing this sort of racial ethnicity and that they're just trying to blend in. These motherfuckers try to do this and then stand out. Like so Rachel Dolezal became the chair of Africana Studies at her fucking university. She also became the president of her local chapter of the NAACP. Like, this lady, like I think Yareni said she was the chair of like a department or something. Like, they're like, it's not like these people are just trying to blend in and like, kind of see what it's like. It's like they set themselves a task, like, I'm gonna try to pretend to be someone I'm not in an oppressed, exploited community, and I'm gonna show all these people that I can rise to the top. That's some kind of weird ass fucking psycho shit.
That's some colonizer mentality.
That's a fucking Columbus scene right there.
So yeah, she was to be specific, she was a associate professor at George Washington University.
Which is a good school. Like, it's, Do you know what she studies? You know what her research was on?
Yeah, so she says she has written extensively about Africa, Latin America, and the diaspora and identity.
Diaspora, yeah. So you know what? Actually, like people have actually said, you know what? Her research is actually really good, and there was no reason for her to perform. Like she could have done this research, and she could have promoted this research as a white woman, or a Jewish woman. However, she, you know, well, not however she identifies, because obviously she was trying to identify as Afro Latina, right? But like like whatever her background is, and however eventually she chooses it, or she did choose to like, you know, identify beforehand, she could have done it that way, and it still would have been good scholarship. But she still chose this, and it's beyond me, dude. I can't. Which brings up, you know, a whole other sort of, there's a whole other politics to this. And Adolf Reed, sometimes, yeah, I don't know if y'all know who Adolf Reed is. He's one of my favorite political scientists. He's a radical scholar. He's a political scientist, and he's African American. And maybe that's another topic that we'll take up too, like, you know, identity politics versus like, you know, like not versus, but the weird tension between identity politics and sort of working class politics. And he's been writing about this for a really, really long time. Like even recently, DSA disinvited him. He's been a DSA member since before it was popular. So like he's been a DSA member since Michael Harrington kind of started the organization a long time ago. And he's an organizer. He used to be a labor organizer. So the dude has his chops in actually working class communities. He's a scholar. He's a radical scholar who like has written books. He's semi-famous. So I think New York DSA chapter invited him to talk, and they disinvited him because of some of the stuff that he says about identity politics. He says people focus too much on that. He wrote a piece on like how some social constructions are reified. Reified means how they're made real, and then people sort of like latch onto them, and how other social constructions are not okay. So, you know, like people can agree that like gender is socially constructed, right? That like there isn't like actually a male or female gender, that there's spectrums of genders. If you look at nature, it's the same way. I'm not an expert in this, so if I'm mistalking, if I'm talking in a way that sort of I don't claim to be an expert on this, but he talks about like how everyone focused on, you know, the performativity of Rachel Dolezal, but like, you know, in the middle of in the middle of the fucking pandemic, we should be dealing with like, you know, people losing their fucking homes, which we are actually going to deal with in the next episode. That's a plug for the next episode. But so he wrote a piece on like the difference between transracial and transgendered. And he's not saying that they're the same. He's just like trying to have a conversation about the complicated politics of identity. And how some, like, you know, Rachel Dolezal doing what she did is terrible. It's fucking awful. But then like there's others that like, you know, and he's not arguing against transgender folks at all. He's just, you know, he's trying to have difficult conversations that sometimes people are too scared to have in our society, because, you know, like it can be seen as offensive or whatnot, or too, you know, like, and so people stay with simplistic conversations. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'm gonna shut up. I see you smiling at me, Celeste, so I can see that you agree with what I'm saying.
End off on your note though. Like, what you were gonna say?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Guillermo's like, no, finish, go on.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, you know, there's these complicated sort of things that happen in our society, that like I think merit further discussion. But we live in a world of 9-second sound bites and TikToks that, like, you know, the information has to be passed on in like 10 seconds, that like don't allow us to explore these different things. And so it's also, and I don't want because I'm simplifying it. It's like also part of like cancel culture. You know, like I think to some degree we're quick to cancel people. Some people should be canceled. I want to say that outright. Like, you know, fucking like white supremacists, like fucking fascism. Like there's some shit that deserves canceling, right? But you know, we don't have like deep discussions about topics in a way where we're trying to get to like a deeper sense of what, you know, and it's hard to do. Like, again, like it's taking me even 5 minutes to explain that we should have these conversations. That just proves my point, and y'all are probably tired of hearing me talk, and then y'all are just staring at me like giving me the eye roll, like, Dr. Carlos, shut the fuck up. You add that to the reel of Dr. Carlos saying fuck.
No, but you made a good point right now. Like Trump supporters should be canceled. Trump, fascists, like people like that. But where's our energy as a whole with those people to be canceled? I think we should like cancel culture. Our energy should be more towards those people that deserve to be canceled for real, like Trump.
And honestly, for me, it's our energy should be, yeah, you know what? There's people who are going to be like Jessica, you know, salsa dancer lady. There's, you know, or, you know, Rachel Dolezal, you know, don't put your energy into like, hey, you know, like, yeah, she shouldn't have done that. But there's people in your community that need your help. Put your energy into building the future. That's really like, for me, if I have to summarize it, is, you know, like, I don't get, like, I get frustrated. If anything, I laugh at that shit, because there's so many people that expend their energy like talking that lady down, and she deserves everything that she gets. Don't get me wrong, but like if we put that same amount of energy into building, you know, more democratic communities, if we put that same kind of energy into supporting like, you know, Black Lives Matter movements, if we put that same kind of energy into like, you know, the eviction crisis that's looming, like it's just, for me, it's misplaced energy, honestly. So I love the way that you said it in terms of energy, because that's what it is. So, and that's what Adolf Reed is arguing in that piece, is that, look, man, y'all, and you spend, there was like months where people were debating the Rachel Dolezal thing. And I'm sure that this is going to take on a life of its own, and people are going to write books about this. People are going to research, you know, people who, like her, that do this stuff. And at the same time, our communities are suffering economically. And like, I have for instance, I'm doing research. I have a student who is really interested in doing like political economic research, and I had her look up how many articles are being written, or how many books and articles have been written on predatory lending in Latino communities, and she found three articles that are not specifically about Latino community. It's predatory lending in general. And you know, I had her map. So with her help, and actually Chris Wright, who researched me before, he was a GIS expert on mapping. We mapped out how many predatory lending businesses are in Long Beach, and all of them, every single one of them, is in a heavily densely populated Latino neighborhood.
Wow.
And so, but you know, identity is sexy, so people write books about that. But you know, who's over here advocating for the fact that people shouldn't have to pay to spend their own money? Who's advocating? And there is people out there advocating for this stuff, but in terms of the scholarship, it's not there, or it's not where it should be. So sorry, I get animated about this shit because I care about political economy as a Latino. And I want to highlight that. I'm very proud of the fact that this is an all Latino podcast. Actually, like, I don't even like the word Latino, but this is an all brown podcast, different shades of brown. But this is a Latino led. Like I actually identify as Chicano, but Latino is sort of the umbrella term, right? But yeah, I'm proud of that. That, you know, this is about, you know, young folks who care about politics and care about culture and care about society, and eventually, like, y'all, I want y'all to run with this thing.
Shout out to that too. Shout out to all of us. Shout out to the Brown movement. Shout out to the Latinos and everybody struggling right now, but we're out here making ourselves heard.
You know, I'm gonna say another thing. I'm gonna say raza, even though like that's being canceled right now. That's a whole other conversation. Maybe we should do a segment just on like raza and reclaiming raza. And this in like, for those of you that know, some people are canceling raza because there is a connection to someone who coined. He didn't coin the term, but he started using the term in a very like fascist way. But that's not how people use it in the communities that like we grow up in. Like, it means people, it means human being in our communities. Anyway, we have other topics to cover.
This morning on Instagram, I saw a post where it was like I think in Los Angeles, yeah, because LAPD is the one doing it. So there was like on one side Black Lives Matter demonstrators, and on the other side Trump supporters, and the police department was harassing and just like enforcing their presence on the Black Lives Matter side. And that's, I was saying that's systematic racism in full show.
Yeah.
And the Trump supporters were just there like on that side.
And that's common.
Picture. Sorry,
Rennie, go ahead.
Basically.
I mean, they did that in Portland too, right? Like in Portland, you know, you had like you know, that's another one. So let's talk about sort of Black Lives Matter. Again, like, I don't know how, it's just, it's exasperating to know that I live in a world where people have a problem with me just saying like black people should be able to live. Like that's it. That's all that Black Lives Matter means.
That's
It,
controversy.
how is that controversial? Like, how is it controversial that like the cops shouldn't kill anyone? Anyone. If they can bring in a fucking church bomber, if they can bring in a theater shooter who massacred people at a school shooting, if they can bring any of these fools in and take them to Burger King,
A 17-year-old that
yeah, the Kenosha, right? The Kyle fucking Rittenhouse. If they can, if they can bring this, if they can let them walk around with guns after they murder people, and then eventually bring them in, how are you gonna shoot like a black person in the back 7 times?
with no remorse whatsoever in front of their
remorse, that's just fucking tragic. His kids in the back of the car, like, it's just, it's awful. And it's every fucking week, it's every day, and
so many cases that are not even filmed.
Exactly. Like, Celestis, like, not, like these are only the ones that we were able to capture, or people were able to capture on film. Imagine all the ones that aren't. And so this is what I was referring to earlier about fascism, right? Like fascism is a police state. It's a militarized state. And like we've been headed down this road for a really long time. Like, yeah, everybody talks shit about Trump, but like, who helped militarize police forces across the country?
Obama.
Obama did. Obama had a program to help transition military weaponry to police departments.
And it was incentives. Like they were incentivized to like do this.
Yeah.
He literally started this in a way.
And then so surveillance systems, like, I mean, he got caught for prison, which was illegal. A judge actually yesterday just ruled that system, that surveillance program that Obama sort of started was illegal. So basically kind of exonerating to some degree Edward Snowden for whistleblowing about that program. It's just, man, it's just beyond me. Like, like I remember Guillermo when we first started talking about doing a podcast. He was like, "Oh, well, let's do one on Black Lives Matter," and then we were talking about George Floyd, and we did sort of discuss it a little bit, and then it's Jacob Blake, and then it's gonna be like we can literally do an episode on Black Lives Matter every fucking week, and that's disheartening. I teach racial and ethnic politics class. I've been teaching that class for 8 years now, and it's beyond me that every single semester there's like a bunch of new names that I'm talking about. And it's saddening to me that I'm introducing this topic to students, and then in their memory this is the name that they're going to remember. But I've been teaching this so long that I can't keep track of all the names, and that frustrates me. The fact that like there's so many names that I remember a few of them, but I don't remember all of them. And then so also the last week, like even Biden. Oh my God, did you guys see what he said about the Breonna Taylor situation?
I didn't see. What did he say?
I didn't either.
Oh man. Sometimes I feel like I spend too much time on social media. That's why I know about this stuff, honestly. That's where I get my news and information from, like different people's posts. And I do read some other stuff, but so he made a comment. A journalist asked him about Breonna Taylor, and there's the new sort of developments. Her boyfriend was offered 10 years, like a reduced sentence if he named Breonna Taylor as a co-conspirator in a drug ring or some shit, and he didn't take it. And they basically tried to blackmail him by saying, hey, if you say this lie, then we won't charge you with like we won't charge you with this really heavy fine, and like you won't be facing life in prison. And he's like, nah, man, fuck that. That's not what happened. Like, none of this is true. They're trying to pin they're trying to say that he was part of some kind of like drug conspiracy, and like he's part of the drug cartel or some shit. So they asked Biden about whether he thinks Breonna Taylor's murderers, the cops, police should be brought to justice. And he's like, I think the justice system should be allowed to work, and yes, these people should be brought to justice. And I think that Breonna Taylor should also be brought to justice. Like,
what does that even mean?
like one, she's deceased because she was murdered by the police. In her sleep, the way that Fred Hampton was murdered by the police in his sleep. Like, two, there is no actual evidence of her having been a part of anything. And they're still trying to smear her name to the point where, and they've been successful to the point where the potential future president of the United States actually thinks that she's guilty. That's just, man, like that, like every single day, Biden is making it harder for me to vote for him. You know, last time I said, yeah, like right now I'm basically a single issue voter. I hate this man with a passion. I think he's done so much damage to people of color, to African Americans, the crime bills that he passed, the there's so much immigration system that he's helped set up. But I am voting for him only because I used to be an undocumented person. And I know that at least under him, and even then, it won't be that much. Like, it won't be as bad for little kids in cages, even though he helped build those fucking cages. Like, I'm just disheartened with this whole fucking system, honestly. Like I have to vote for this creepy ass fool because I know what a second Trump president could be. Like, I'm scared of that. I am, because it's not going to be a 4-year term. Like, if this fool can stay another 4 years, he's going to be, fuck it, I'm gonna pass an executive order like that revokes the 2-year term limits. And the way that Republicans are sort of rallying around like him and just letting him do whatever he fucking wants, like without, and he calls himself the law and order president. Man, all your friends are all fucking criminals. Like all the cops that you're supporting are fucking, like, they're criminals. They're breaking the law and not being brought to justice. He's not a law and order president. He's a like stomp you with a boot fascist president.
His pedophile friends, like, there's just too much that he has on him, and they're letting so much slide. Yeah, that I don't care that he'll be able to, like, one day say, I'm gonna take over America and I'm the king.
Well, I just think he feels that way. He's already talking about how he's not gonna, that he doesn't believe the. Did you see what he did? So he's the law and order president, and he said that people in North Carolina should vote twice to make sure that the mail-in ballot, like, is counted. He's actually telling people to break the law. So one, he has an issue with mail-in ballots. Period. He says that he does, even though he actually has historically voted through a mail-in ballot. That fool's never gone to a poll location. But all of a sudden it's problematic. But it's so problematic that he's telling his supporters to vote twice, which is actually a felony. Like this, and so he's telling people that he's not gonna, that he's already setting up the situation to where he can question the results of the polls. And you see how he's already being defended by people with guns everywhere, like, you know, all these Trump supporters. And then what was that say related to the guns? In Kenosha specifically. Oh, did you see that like these supposedly Christians, right? Like, I saw a meme yesterday, like, that said, when people say that they're Christian, I always ask them classic Christian or like conservative Christian. So there's a huge difference.
Yeah, there is a huge difference.
Yeah, like, so what happened is, you know, this I don't want to call him a kid because, you know, he's old enough to know what the fuck he was doing. 17 years old, bootlicking, cop loving, quote unquote blue lives matter, like, garbage. That's what he is. What's his name? Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, he murdered 2 people, and a Christian organization started raising money for him, trying to paint him as the victim. President Trump is trying to paint him as a victim, and they've raised $300,000 for him for his defense. What kind of Christian organization defends a murderer?
A secretly Ku Klux Klan organization.
A Ku Klux Christian? I like that. Ku Klux Christian. I'm gonna start using that. Like, as you said, Guillermo, it's sort of it's disheartening, man. Like, every week, you know, we wake up. So, like, it not only was Jacob Blake situation worse, 2 days later, like, you know, some white, you know, people who believe, some good white folks who believe in in Black Lives Mattering, actually out there showing support for Black Lives Mattering, are murdered. And one of them was murdered trying to stop him, right? Like with the guy with the skateboard, I forget his name at the moment, but he tried to stop him, tried to hit him, and then like he got up, gunned him down, and then and he was still able to walk towards the police like nothing. Like there's not an African American person in this country that can walk around with a gun that way, with his hands up in the air, without and walking towards the police without getting shot.
That's so true. Without getting shot or without getting brought down, without getting force being put upon him.
It happens. State-sanctioned murder happens so often. So how, so back to the question of fascism, how is this not fascism? How has it not been fascism for a long time when people are subjected to this? I like Huey Newton. Huey Newton talks about this a little bit. He says that he talks about African Americans, but I can extend it to like people of color in general, that people of color in general live a completely different life than white folks do. They live in communities that are often very similar to occupied land where the military sort of patrols their neighborhoods. So he talks about like low intensity warfare, like the fact that police are always patrolling our neighborhoods, always like watching us, always brutalizing people. I was listening to a public comment that I saw on in the Long Beach City Council, where it was a Long Beach Police Department. Like it was basically a kid. He got really nervous. A Black kid got really nervous around the cops, so he kind of just like walked in a different direction. The cops pursued him, and he started running because he was scared. And they started calling him the N-word. They started calling him like I don't want to say it. And they shot him like 17 times in the back.
Damn.
And then you want us to respect these people? Like, I mean, I remember as the earliest memory I have of my interactions with police, I was like 6 or 7 years old riding my bike and some white cops telling me that I need to go back to my side of the street, and they want us to respect these people. Like what do they think is going to happen when they brutalize? Like, it was one thing when we were minorities, right? There's one thing when, but now that the demographics of this country are changing, what do you think is going to happen when one population is growing and they're having these negative experiences with police, and it turns into the majority of people are having negative experiences with police? What do you think is going to happen? People are going to fight back, and then don't get me started on the fucking looting. Like, you care more about like private property than you care about human life.
Yeah, it's like that's their excuse right away. Like, well, they shouldn't be looting, and it's like, well, the conversation turns into the looting instead of the issue at hand, which is someone was killed. And it's like you care more about a building than someone's life.
And let's be real, they don't care about the building. Honestly, they don't even know who owns the building. They're using that as an excuse to talk shit about people who are just demanding to be treated as human beings.
It's propaganda to cover up their racism.
I saw a really good meme. I'm gonna read a couple to you. It was a Twitter feed from Bria Newsom Bass, who says, "I was prepared," and she's quoting like how these people sound when they start talking shit about looting and rioting. So one, since I don't know if this is gonna air before or after Labor Day, but one, if you don't support looting or you have an issue with looting, then you don't get to take the weekend off. If you have an issue with rioting, you don't, you know what? I want you to work 7 days a week and not take any holidays off. Don't take Labor Day off. Like, go your ass to work, because it shows that you have a complete misunderstanding, a complete faulty understanding of what American history is. Every single right that people have, if you're poor, if you're white and poor, if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, the reason you are supposed to be allowed to exist and or have a right to vote and have the right to own property is because somebody somewhere rioted and looted for your right to do that, because wealthy people did not want you to do that. So that's one. I tell my students that that rioting and looting is as American as apple pie, and I think people have been showing this freeway sign that said they have looted more than we can ever take, or that more than we can ever burn down. So one, understand that. Like, that human lives, like millions of human lives, have been lost to rioting and looting by the wealthy. But Bree Newsom Bass, she posted this sort of like bunch of quotes that are like satire, and so she was like, I was prepared to support the humanity of Black people until I saw someone set a car on fire. Like, what's more important, the car or someone's humanity? I don't know if I can support slavery abolition because I read somewhere someone burned a field of cotton. That's going too far. So in the context of former slavery, and this is one of the issues that happens that we whitewash historical figures. Like when as a kid I had learned about Harriet Tubman, and nowhere in what I learned about her did they say that she led her own fucking regiment and she was a badass and she burned plantations to the ground. And institutions that exploit and brutalize human bodies should be burned to the ground. I got no problem with that. Laborers are going to rebuild that shit. It's a building. If you want us to respect you as human beings and equal citizens, you must plead your case before us within these parameters we have identified according to our own comfort level, or else we will have no choice but to further brutalize you. So you have to cater to us. Your humanity is based on our conceptions and our perspectives. I must witness you patiently endure my violence against you in order for me to possibly feel sympathy towards you. It's your responsibility to move my heart and mind by allowing me to do that. So again, who gets to decide whose humanity should be respected? And if I don't feel like, you're a full human being because of all the socialization we undergo that's anti-Black in this country and anti-Latino and anti-Asian as a result, then it doesn't matter to me. This is the centuries-long dynamic of race in America. It's basically simply that. And that people are African-American folks are fighting and people are being in solidarity with them and fighting that that somebody's humanity is not contingent upon white feelings and private property burning down or not burning down.
Did you guys see in Los Angeles what happened when they put the cops surrounded them in the tunnel and started shooting at them?
Yeah, I heard about that. I saw that.
That's like another case of the police just they're not caring about the point of why they're gathering, why they're demonstrating. It's crazy how they treat them as if they're not even doing nothing like shooting at them. They're not doing nothing and they're instigating. That's all they're doing, instigating so they could loot, instigating so they could riot back. They're peacefully demonstrating.
And they're agent provocateurs. I mean, and this goes back, right? And this is the thing. Another thing that frustrates me is that Latinos don't understand this. I have family members who post cop loving shit, right? They're like, well, if you don't antagonize the police, you won't get shot. No, you shouldn't get shot, period. The police they're not judge, jury, and executioner. And I don't understand this because these same people have been harassed by the police for being brown in their own communities, and they're bootlicking cops. And I mean, this is known that police actively try to instigate destruction of property, which then gives them the excuse to supposedly go in and quell any kind of sort of peaceful protest. And this was the case. I mean, we just happened to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the August 29th movement, right? Of the Chicano moratorium. And that's what happened. People were peacefully assembled in a park to highlight that Chicanos were dying at a higher rates than their proportion of the people in the war. And it was an anti-war demonstration. And it was peaceful. People were gathered at a park. There was people doing baile folklorico. They were playing music. People were talking on the mic to raise awareness. And the police came in and just started beating the shit out of everybody, resulting in the murder of 3 people, particularly, most famously, the LA Times reporter Ruben Salazar. And so one of my frustrations is that people talk shit about the riots and the people who were protesting, but the riots are always started by the police. If cops weren't shooting people in the back, without sort of any cause, you don't need a cause. I don't care the whole probable cause, justify homicide is stupid. They shouldn't be doing it, period. We as a human society should learn a way if nurses and social workers can detain like violent, crazy sort of patients who are like going off the rails without any guns, like police should know how to do that too. De-escalation tactics, like learn some Krav Maga to like, help you sort of detain someone, to detain them, not to murder them. And they end up being police riots. It's frustrating. One, that people don't even recognize that there's a connection between the way that African Americans are treated and the way that other exploited minorities, or they're not even minorities anymore. People of color are exploited.
Thank you for all that information, and shouting out the Chicano moratorium, because that's it's a significant event that a lot of people don't know about unless you learn about ethnic studies class, or unless you're digging for that information.
And there's a direct correlation between Ruben Salazar being murdered and every other like person being murdered at the hands of police. Is there good police members? There's people who maybe they have good intentions in joining the police, but the structures and the institutions of policing, that this like where we police, like there's all kinds of research that shows that like I mean there's even like white people admitting that they did crimes that they don't get caught for, right? There's a whole hashtag called criming while white. Like, and if any person of color ever did any one of those things and was stopped by a police, they'd be in prison right now.
Yeah, I remember I was thinking a lot this past week, and when I got my first car, it was a 1999 Honda Civic. And I
had a 2000 Honda Civic.
Yeah, I had a 1999 Honda Civic, and I had just gotten my license, and my friends and my cousin, we wanted donuts. So we went out and went to Krispy Kreme, and it's kind of far. The closest one to me, it's like 20 minutes.
Hold on, I'm gonna interrupt you. I never go to donut shops because I always know there's gonna be cops there. Like, I stay away from that. Like honestly, I love donuts, but I don't like going there because like there's always gonna be like, I always see cops at donut shops. So like I know, like, why would I go there? Sorry, I didn't.
So we were coming back, and I just see like a car speeding down my way, and I was like, oh my god, I think that's a cop. What the hell? So yeah, it was the cop. I get pulled over, and the guy comes to my window, and I was nervous. Like, I was shaking because why did I get pulled over? Like, there's no reason for me to get pulled over at all. So he comes to my window and he's like, is this your car? And I was like, yeah. And then, because my car didn't have a license plate either, so it's like I had just gotten it. So he's like, okay, because these cars get robbed pretty easily all the time. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, where did you get it? And then I was like, my mom, she came home with the car. Like, I don't know. And he's like, well, do you know who she got it from? And then I was like, no. And then I was like, I have the DMV sticker in the back of my window. And like, he kind of looked, because it was dark. He looked in and he was like, okay, all right. Have a nice day. But what I didn't know, because I was so nervous, that there was a second cop on my passenger side. And I didn't notice that because I was so nervous and concentrated over here, but my best friend and her little sister were in the back, and they were scared because it's like, what the hell? It's like, now that I look back, it's like I was convinced they were looking for trouble, because that's all they came up to ask. Like, they saw a car that usually gets stolen, and like this, like they're already like on a mission. Like, they're not on a mission to find out like, are you like, who are you? Is it okay? Like, they're like on a mission to cause trouble, to like like some fucking adrenaline, or I don't know, some sick shit. But like, now that I look back on that, I'm like, I'm convinced that if it was a person of color, it was a black person, some shit would have gone down that night. Because what, like, like just the way that they came at me and how like pressing they were that this car was stolen, like, just convinces me that like something was, like, if it wasn't me, someone else.
Yeah.
With the assumption that you might be guilty.
Exactly. Like, they already assumed that the car was stolen, but it wasn't. Like, literally, I had it.
They could have assumed even you stole it. Like that's the they're probably like asking those questions like that.
Yeah.
I've been pulled over before where the cops are like, what are you doing in this neighborhood? You don't belong here. Like, and then they asked me for my ID, and I'm like, you're from over there. Like, what do you do? Like last time I checked, you know, we didn't live in a segregated society. Like, I can drive wherever I want. I pay California taxes that go to all California roads, including this one. Like, if I say anything like that, I'm gonna get my ass beat by the cops, right? Um, and one of the things that I started doing, and it's unfortunate that I even have to start doing that. And even then, that gives me like a modicum of protection. Like, I started posting like my university stickers on my car, just so they know that, like, at least when they approach my car, that they're dealing with someone who's semi-educated. And like, I feel guilty about that to some degree, because like that protects me to some degree. But like, what about everybody else? What about, you know, like the majority of my community who doesn't have that privilege? And it's just frustrating, man, because like that's the training they get. You know, they get trained to treat people like they're not like to assume that people are guilty before proven innocent. And it's only selective, right? Because they treat white folks like they're innocent until proven guilty. There's hella examples on the internet of like white dudes wielding guns, wielding knives to the police, and the police having all kinds of patience in the world, all kinds of patience. But like people of color like are presumed to be guilty. And that's not, you know, more training is not going to fix that. You know, like we got to defund the police. And if you really care about safety, we got to invest in the things that make communities safe. We got to invest in like better jobs programs. We got to invest in childcare. We got to invest in after school programs not run by the police, because the police have their own youth programs. Like, we don't need that. That's how you end up with Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, Kyle Rittenhouse was in youth programs, but they were police programs that, like, you know, that made him an extremist, right? Like they taught him to be suspicious of anyone that didn't look like him, and that's how you end up with situations like that. You end up with situations, you know, you play out people's fears rather than on building communities that like are more connected, that communities that like reinforce and help each other out. Like that's and it's, man, we can keep talking about this for days, but and you know, we will. I'm sure that it'll come up again. But yeah, it's, you know, if you're out there, you know, and you're interested in getting involved in some of this stuff, I'm sure there's a Black Lives Matter movement toward like chapter near you. Follow them at the very least. They put out a lot of really good information here in Long Beach. They're actually doing a lot of really good work locally. And here's the important piece too, is that it's based on solidarity. It's like, it's not a Black only issue. Like, these folks actually, they stand up for in Long Beach Latinos, because Latinos are the majority. You know, they talk shit to the police for murdering and brutalizing Latinos also. And so don't use the excuse that like, how come they only care? No, they care about everyone who's being brutalized by the police. We need to use our scarce resources, especially in the middle of this pandemic, to invest in the things that make communities safer, which is more money for youth programs, more money for healthcare programs, paying people a living wage. You know, I think, you know, like the one silver lining in Long Beach that I've seen in the 6 years that this mayor has been mayor is they finally started a small pilot program to provide some poor people with some income. So like a universal income program, but for needy people. Like, so like that's one good thing, but they don't, you know, I'm sure it's very limited. It's probably only going to give money to like a couple people. And, you know, instead of us giving our money to tanks that we don't need and like all the like militarizing the police, let's give that money to people, because poor people are going to reinvest that money. They're going to spend that money. That's going to spur the local economy. But yeah, again, human life matters way more than any piece of property. I think who said it? Che said that like, you know, the value of one human life is worth more than any of the capital ever. I'm not quoting him directly, but, you know, it's basically like, you know, like nowhere near, like no private property is ever worth anywhere near as close as the value of one human life.
For real. It's true.
I love Guillermo. He always does the like, yeah, for real.
Because then if not, it's just awkward silence.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, what do you say? Like, it's even hard to wrap up a show. Like, how do you wrap up a show, you know, when you're talking about human life? And so, you know, my go-to sort of is to just keep talking, because I feel like I don't know how to stop this and say, you know, I think this is important to talk about, and it's important to talk about and keep talking about it, but we have to stop the show. You know, like that feels weird to me too. But I guess on that note, Thank you all for listening. We appreciate your membership. Tell your friends about the show. Spread it on social media. Share our note, especially the funny clips that Guillermo does for us. Where I drop f-bombs and I talk about Sharknado and I talk about just random shit, and we all kind of like riff on each other.
More coming soon.
Members get early access to it. Everyone else can it eventually becomes public. You can find it on our YouTube if you want to watch it. Eventually, when after the pandemic, hopefully there is an after the pandemic, we'll actually film it all together in a studio, like in one place, so we'll all be in the same room. But you can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Apple Podcasts. Where else can you find it, Yereni? I think we're working on Google Podcasts. No.
SoundCloud. Did you mention that?
You're on mute. That's the most spoken phrase in 2020.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, like Celeste says, SoundCloud. We're working on Apple Podcasts.
No, it's already on Apple Podcasts.
It is?
Isn't that open?
I submitted the thing, but I think it's still under review for it.
Okay, my bad.
But soon.
Soon.
And then eventually on Instagram. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the stuff. Help get the voices of young Latinos out. And also, like, I know, like, again, y'all need to shut me up sometimes, man. You're on mute.
Follow Sembrando Ideales on Instagram too.
Yes. And support our causes. Right now we have housing committees doing really good work trying to get information out about evictions. We have a bunch of projects going on that we're trying to sort of just like build a better world. We're trying to build a future that's democratic, where people feel like their communities are thriving, not this fucking dystopia that we're living in. So thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. We actually have a bunch of episodes lined up, so
stay tuned.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.